The next event on the program is the women's lightweight quad scull. Race 582 on the 7th day of the National Rowing Championships and Interstate Regatta. This is for the Victoria Cup. New South Wales on lane 1, Queensland on 2, Tasmania on 3, Victoria on 4, and rowing Western Australia on lane 5. That race right on time at 12:30. The crews are in the starters' hands, ready to go in the women's interstate Coxless Quad Scull Championship. This was first held as a 4, of course, in the early days of Victoria Cup, and then in 1999 changed to a quad scull. So the coxswain is out of the boat and it's just the 4 girls, and they're away in the women's lightweight Coxless Quad Scull interstate race for the Victoria Cup, with Tasmania, the title holders in this event, on lane 3. This should be a terrific race. It's very hard to predict the winner. Ray and I were previewing it earlier on, and it was a pretty tight race between them as it is in the early stages. Now the conditions have got fairly strong tailwind conditions now, which some people think, oh well, it's going to increase the time, but it's still more difficult conditions to handle out there because it's quite choppy up near the start. But at any rate, the crews are away well. New South Wales away well on station 1, alongside them Queensland, in the middle of the course Tasmania, then back to Victoria and Western Australia on 5. But New South Wales maybe just taking a narrow lead in the first few hundred metres of the Victoria Cup for the women's lightweight Coxless Quad Scull. Queensland in the lead. Sorry, New South Wales in the lead from Queensland taking the lead, I should say, away from New South Wales. And Western Australia right up there in contention, only half a length behind, perhaps on level terms with New South Wales, followed by Tasmania and Victoria at the rear of the field. But it's Queensland moving into the lead now after New South Wales came sharply out of the blocks. Amy James, Katrina Rose, Gabby Cookler and Hannah Every Hall. Hannah, of course, taking a terrific regatta so far, having won at least, I think it's 2 or 3 gold medals, and she's after this interstate women's Coxless Quad Scull, if nobody else is, at 33.5 strokes a minute. Queensland and Western Australia at the same rating. And through the first 500 metres, it was Queensland in 1:37.37, 0.33 seconds, or a couple of metres back to Western Australia. Then nearly a length back to New South Wales, 2.34 away, followed closely by Tasmania and Victoria. So about a length covering the 5 crews in this particular event, the women's interstate lightweight Coxless Quad Scull for the Victoria Cup, with the Queensland crew sitting out in the lead on lane 2. Beautifully stroked by Hannah Every Hall and coached by Andrew Cruikshank, who's had a great success at the regatta here as a coach, and of course Hannah Every Hall. And they've gone out to a clear lead now over Western Australia, maybe a length advantage in the second 500 metres. Queensland on lane 2, Western Australia over on the far side in this 5-crew race on lane 5. In third position, perhaps the crew from Tasmania ahead of New South Wales and Victoria. But Queensland looking good as they come up towards the 1,000-metre mark. Western Australia rating on 33 strokes a minute, but Queensland still about a third of a length to half a length in front as they come towards the 1,000-metre mark. And Queensland on 32 strokes a minute, slightly underrating them behind their stroke. Hannah Every Hall as Gabby Cookler, Katrina Rose and Amy James. In the West Australian crew, seated from the bow, Hannah Jansen, Alexandra Hayes, Mia Simmons and Jessica Bowyer. Coached jointly by Roland Warren, Rebecca Satin and Jamie Jones. And through the 1,000-metre mark, still pretty tight. Queensland in 3:16.85, just ahead of the Western Australian crew by 0.25, followed by Tasmania. Victoria moving into 4th position, just ahead of New South Wales. But a titanic struggle going on between Queensland and Western Australia. They've been fairly tight right throughout the race. Queensland handling the conditions beautifully here in these fairly strong tailwind conditions. Very clean water, not very much splash at all, which is terrific considering the conditions that are prevailing. And they're getting the boat, keeping the boat running well, and stroking it well behind their stroke. Hannah every Hall at 33.5 strokes a minute still. The West Australians sticking right with them on lane 5. Queensland on lane 2. Then a little gap back to Tasmania, followed by Victoria and New South Wales, who shot out of the blocks but are back in 5th position now. Queensland settling down still at 33.5 strokes a minute to a very steady rate. The Western Australians also right up there in contention. But Queensland come up in this well into this third 500 metres, where it often happens in rowing, coming down in the Bob Blakely after one of their top coaches for many, many years was Western Australia on lane 2, about a third of a length behind, still right there with them as they came through the 1500. Queensland in 4:55.79, just increasing their lead slightly over Western Australia, 0.58. Tasmania in the bronze medal position, just ahead of Victoria and New South Wales at the rear. But it's Queensland looking for gold here in the women's lightweight Coxless Quad Scull for the Victoria Cup. Western Australia certainly keeping them honest. Both crews on about 33.5 strokes a minute. Now Hannah Hall is lifting her work rate, and the girls are going with her as they see the challenge in Western Australia with about 350 metres to go. The Western Australians in the bright yellow colours over there on lane 5, certainly having a challenge to the Queenslanders who are on this side of the course on lane 2. Then clearly in 3rd position is Tasmania on lane 3, followed by the crew from Victoria on lane 4, and New South Wales tailed off at the rear of the field. But it's still Queensland, but Western Australia trying very hard behind their stroke. Jessica Bowyer is Mayo Simmons, Alexandra Hayes and Hannah Jansen, coached jointly by Roland Warren and Rebecca Satin and Jamie Jones. Really coming at the Queenslanders now. They've had a ding-dong struggle all the way down the course. Queensland still in front by a third of a length over Western Australia, who are trying to close the gap 2.5 lengths back to Tasmania, Victoria and New South Wales. But it's going to be Queensland coming now to take out the Victoria Cup for the women's lightweight Coxless Quad Scull interstate race, drawing away to 3/4 of a length at the finish from Western Australia in 2nd position. Tasmania holding on to 3rd position, just ahead of the fast finishing Victorian crew, but a dominating win there by Queensland in the concluding stages over the crew from Western Australia, followed by Tasmania, Victoria and New South Wales at the rear of the field. Well, they're very excited, the girls from Queensland. Hannah Hall has had a magnificent regatta here, and she stroked that crew beautifully in the women's lightweight Coxless Quad Scull. I think that's the first time they've won that race, Ray, for the Victoria Cup.
That's correct, Roger. And the youngster in the bow seat, Amy James, first year out of school. Under 23 lightweight single scull, won the B final here a couple of days ago. First year out of school, where she came from Somerville House. She won the under 23 lightweight double scull. But yeah, terrific win, and very exciting particularly for the youngsters.
Presentation of the medals and the Victoria Cup for the Interstate Women's Lightweight Coxless Quad Scull Championship of Australia. The medals will be presented by Kirsten Alexander, Mayor of the City of Charles Sturt, and the Victoria Cup will be presented by Heather Neal, representing Rowing Australia, a Board Director of Rowing Australia. In 3rd place, and winners of the bronze medal, Tasmania. Georgia Nesbitt, Renee Britton, Eve Muir and Ellen Flecker. The coaches Ken Davey and Paul Newbon. In 2nd place, representing Western Australia, Hannah Jansen, Alexandra Hayes, Maya Simmons and Jessica Bowyer. Coaches Roland Warren, Rebecca Satin and Jamie Jones. And the interstate champions for 2011, Queensland. Amy James, Katrina Rose, Gabby Cookler, Hannah Every Hall. The coach, Andrew Cruikshank. And Heather Neal will now hand the Victoria Cup to the stroke of Queensland, Hannah Every Hall. Hannah, how many Victoria Cups have you won?
I think this is only my third. 2 for Victoria and now 1 for Queensland. This is Queensland's first time on the Cup.
And the first one you won was in the 80s, was it?
Thanks, Bolts. No, the first one I won was actually here back in 1999, and it was the first year it was a lightweight quad. It changed from a 4 to a quad.
And what about your crew? Pretty good young'uns?
They are fantastic young'uns. As you saw out there, they showed a lot of guts in tough and skillful conditions, so they did perfectly well.
Ladies and gentlemen, the interstate champions, women's lightweight quad scull for 2011 and the medalists.